we're going to get rolling right away here with a greeting from the state engineer. John D'Antonio has an illustrious record. You
What was
can
that?
look at it under the
Oh, good.
speaker tab in our conference program. And just to say really briefly, he has engineering degree from University of New Mexico, registered professional engineer, and worked for the Corps of Engineers. He's had a really great career working for water on in a lot of different roles in New Mexico, looking out for New Mexico water interests and coming up with some creative approaches to managing water through the Office of the State Engineer. So I'm going to turn it right over to John D'Antonio.
Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate the opportunity. And again, this is one of my favorite conferences of the year. It's the 65th annual, and under challenging circumstances, we're able to set this up and allow everybody to participate. So I think that's a great thing that we're able to use technology to continue forward. We haven't stopped, and I'm going to get right into my presentation just because I know I want to be cognizant of the time and want to go over a few things, and there's a lot of important things that are going on. So again, good morning, everybody. I'll get into my presentation here. One of the things I really wanted to stress early on is that our State Engineer's Office, Interstate Stream Commission, we have been involved during this pandemic time, and quite frankly, we're going through two different emergencies with respect to our staff. Not only are we a victim of the current pandemic, but we're also really challenged with our water supply. And water supplies has been identified as a critical component to public health and safety. We continue to service New Mexicans through our 7 district offices. We've, even through this pandemic, there's a lot of, you just can't stop issuing domestic wells, well driller permits. We have water masters out in the field that are, and the support staff in order to look at over diversions, illegal diversions. We've got some other operations at some of our dams and other facilities like the Las Lunas Silvery Mineral Refugium. Work doesn't stop under these scenarios. And for the most part, all of our programs, our water resources allocation program, which is water rights and dam safety, our hydrology folks, and then getting into our litigation adjudication program, program support, and Interstate Stream Commission. We have 219 folks that are teleworking, either full or part-time, and it's important that we continue the state's work because water is so critical. I'm just going to go quickly through the state budgeting process because with the pandemic, it has budget impacts, and so we're challenging, and we are being challenged with those particular issues. We had a 4% general fund reduction in the special session that just happened earlier this year. Our budget submittal for next year, they've asked us to cut another 5%. We've had a hiring freeze, in elimination of positions. And this is really critical, this third bullet item down here. We've had vacant positions for 2 years, but a lot of it's because we've had hiring freezes. And we've had 81 vacant positions. Because of those vacant positions for over 2 years, the DFA has reduced our authorized positions from 342 to 317. So we've dropped 25 positions. Our vacancy rate reducing from 23.7 to 17.7%. That's not how you really want to reduce your vacancies, but that's a concern. And then agency trust fund solvency or insolvency is really a problem. We live through our administration and a lot of our operations on the Rio Grande Income Fund and the Irrigation Works Construction Fund. I'll just spend just a short time on this. The blue line is the total revenue from these two funds. You can see it goes from fiscal year 10 to fiscal year 22. You can see it's always in this gap between 10 and $15 million. The revenues are, although they've gone down a little bit in the last couple of years and projected to. Our expenditures have shot up in FY19. There's a couple of additional hands in the cookie jar. The forestry fund $2.5 million a year from the two funds, and an increase on money going to the ASACIA programs and infrastructure. What that has done, you can see the gap between our expenditures and our revenues. And so this drop in our trust fund balances in FY22, and it is a problem. The legislature has recognized it. We have come up with a 5-year plan to reduce our reliance on those trust funds. But under the current budget cycle and the revenues the state's making on oil and gas and gross receipts tax, we're not sure it's going to happen soon enough. So just a real big and important issue that we're trying to do is get back $9 million in general fund within the next 5 years at approximately $2 million a year, and just an awareness. But along with that, we feel like there's got to be a new way of governance. We're trying to get into being more entrepreneurial, be innovative, using technology and data analytics to solve complex problems. We're establishing some additional performance standards internally, so that not necessarily reported out to the LFC or DFA, but things that can help us keep track of what we're doing and the progress we're making. We're establishing meaningful metrics within our agency programs. A lot of openness and transparency in administering our policy as we move forward. Triaging our priorities, evaluating risk. We can't do everything to 100% level, and so we've got to figure out the most important issues, and then reallocate some of the funding to address highest priority issues, and then establishing and going back to the project management plans and identified milestones and deliverables, which we've done in the past, and we've got to focus on to make us more efficient on how we work. The drought, I mentioned the emergencies that we've had from the pandemic, but the water emergency affects all of us, and it's a double whammy for our agency. Statewide, we had a drought task force meeting on September the 30th. At that point in time, 67% of our state was in severe drought. It's 84% now, and I'll show you some graphics on that. But in our water year 2020, the precipitation has been 55 to 85% of normal, within half the basins receiving less than 50% of their normal precipitation. Stream flows are 5% to 81% of average in 18 of 21 river basins, and 80% of the states receive less than half its normal rainfall through the monsoon season. Couple that with our reservoir storages, and this is a really compelling number, 20% of average storage, not of capacity, but of average storage. We're below that now in our reservoirs. And then looking forward to the winter of 2021, a greater likelihood of drier than average conditions because of La Nina forecast. Couldn't tell that yesterday and the day before, but hopefully those snows will continue to come. And just a quick look at the drought monitor. When we had our drought task force meeting, you can see the D2 to D4 status. That is the severe drought to exceptional drought. When that status is over 50%, we engage the drought task force. We're at 67%. And just 3 weeks later, looking at the October 13th, that number's gone from 67% to 84%. That's in severe drought or higher status. And you can see these pockets of D4, which is exceptional drought, developing all over the state, and it's just progressively getting worse. It's not unique to New Mexico. Again, this is dated by about a month, and I expect this is probably worse, but you can see the entire Southwest was in about a 72% severe drought status. And then looking at the 3-month outlook, which we always look at, above average temperatures, bullseye right on New Mexico, and then below average precipitation. Again, the majority of that within the state of New Mexico under that B category, which is below average precipitation for the outlook. And then the drought briefings that we get through the drought task force on climate, showing from mid-September to the end of December of this year. This dark brown color is not a good color to be in, and drought persists in this entire area within the state of New Mexico, and it also affects the Colorado supply in our San Juan Basin. It's right dead in the center of this Four Corners area drought. That's really bad. Let me get into water planning, which I think is going to be very important. The governor has indicated that and given us a directive on a 50-year water plan. We jumped into the state legislative session last year asking for $750,000 to put that into effect, and 2 additional staff positions to be able to start scoping that. The bottom line there, no funding or staffing was appropriated. Does that mean we can't do it? No, it doesn't mean we can't do it. We've got to look at other means. The funding reality and the hiring freeze notwithstanding, we're going to get about half that amount through our irrigation works construction fund. Again, I highlight that because those are the funds I highlighted early on that are really going away, and we're using them for critical items like this, but they're not being replenished to the level that we need to. And again, it's a problem for us. But our New Mexico water planning challenges, you can see that left column, the items that are really important within the state of New Mexico. Drought and climate change, so a lot of times those are combined. We're showing them as 2 separate issues. The growing population, the gaps, and this is really important, gaps between supply and demand. All of the inadequate infrastructure that we have, water infrastructure, dam safety, water conveyance structures. We have 50, 60, 70-year-old infrastructure that needs O&M, but we need new infrastructure for new water resources. And then the resource constraints that we have on water administration are really difficult. If we're going to put in place the things that we need to do, we need to fund our staff and our initiatives so that we can actually do the things that we need to do. And obviously, interstate and interstate litigation is not helpful. We have some cases with Texas that are constraining some of the resources. The 50-year water plan will provide an assessment of those challenges in various sectors of the state, describe how we'll bring all New Mexico stakeholders to the table. Again, we want to ensure inclusive water planning, describe what New Mexicans can do to assist in that endeavor. And in the goal of reducing risk, improving water resilience, and creating a realistic, sustainable plan for the next 50 years, and based on reality with respect to hydrologic parameters. Again, the intersection of water data, education and outreach, and climate and drought are really important. The major activities supporting the development of the 50-year water plan, trying to incorporate Governor Lujan Grisham's water resilience vision into some of the relevant portions of the 2018 state water plan. I want to give a shout out to Lucia Sanchez, who's our water planner, and she's done a great job at pulling all of this stuff together. We have these ongoing efforts, the Water Data Act implementation, Stacy Timmons doing well with that, and an initiative by Representative Stansberry and others. That's really important for us to incorporate the Forest and Watershed Advisory Board, Climate Change Task Force, Drought Task Force, and the Tribal Water Summit. All these can feed into activities that support the 50-year water planning effort. Also, we want to proactively engage all the water-related climate work. Again, being somewhat resource challenged, we don't want duplicative efforts. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we want to take studies and combine technical information. And I won't read through all of these, but if you look at all the initiatives that are going on, there is a significant amount of studies, data, information, and what we're trying to do is bring everybody together so we're all not doing our own stovepipe analysis, our own stovepipe plan, but we're bringing together everybody so that we can come up with an all-inclusive state water plan that leverages what's going on already. And again, that'll help reduce the cost of putting a plan in place, but taking the best and the relevant information from all these other plans and incorporate them into our water plan. Major activities that are supporting development of the plan. I really like this strategy. We call it a pivot and leap ahead. We're going to use the experience of selected New Mexico water and climate experts to look at 50 years in advance, describe how our water resources have changed in various sections of the state and the state as a whole. Convene New Mexico water resource climate experts. We're going to use up to 8 to make that leap ahead analysis, and then examine and assess both current water resource situation and expected challenges in 2070. Again, ensuring inclusive participation of all stakeholders in all the watersheds that we have. For this preliminary approach, we have 4 phases. That's going to be 18 months. Hopefully in April, May of 2022, we'll have the plan in place. The phases are developing the approach, improving resilience and reducing the risk. Phase 2 is that leap ahead analysis that I talked about, assessment of current and future water resource conditions and risk. Phase 3 being the outreach and creation of strategies to achieve resilience. And 4 is to produce draft review and a final plan as we move forward. I'm going to go through these really quickly. The Rio Grande, we obviously are limited in time, but we have such a dry water year. We had to curtail diversions by acequias with water rights dating back to 1600, if you can believe that. Those are the oldest water rights in the entire Western United States. There was so little direct flow in the Middle Valley that the river would have dried naturally upstream of Albuquerque in July of this year. The Rio Chama, so up and down, you look at northern New Mexico, we went into strict priority administration starting in July 16th. We happened to have a shortage sharing agreement in that area, but we had ditches that we had to shut off with very senior priorities. The Rio Chama administration, after the plan on the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District, is they run out of water supply. The only thing that's left for Rio Chama is the available native flow. There's prior and paramount rights for the 6 Middle Rio Grande pueblos that have to be accounted for, that are taken off the top. And then the supplemental release of San Juan Chama water by the Bureau of Reclamation for endangered species. And some of the San Juan Chama water for the city of Santa Fe. That's the only water really within the system. This is just a graphic on the water rights. The Pueblo Okewinge with the taking water for 3 days. The other senior ditches, 1600 priority dates, taking them the other 3 days. And so we had 1 day available for these other acequia users that have as early as the 1715 priority date. And it's based on availability of water, very, very problematic water conditions. So much so that we had to do an emergency storage release. And I say we had to do it. New Mexico is in an accrued debit status in the Rio Grande, almost 39,000 acre feet. I'll show you a graphic on that in a minute, but we're in under Article 6 of the Rio Grande Compact, we have to retain water in storage to the extent of that accrued debit. So if we're going to store any water in El Vado or the Santa Fe reservoirs, we've got to store in this amount immediately to make sure we've got water in the bank for Texas downstream. The Compact Commission, by unanimous action, we could authorize the release of storage of any amount of water which is being held. That's pretty bold in these conditions here. So water that's retained in storage in El Vado, again, those are post-1929 reservoirs, Nichols and McCure reservoirs, to the extent of that accrued debit. That's water in El Vado for MRGCD's use, and for the city of Santa Fe in Nichols and McClure, which when they started storing the water last spring, they stored water in those amounts. I'm going to show you this, the Rio Grande Compact, Article 6. These are cumulative departures from 1940 to 2019. That's on the scale here on the x-axis. The y-axis, and interesting and not intuitive to most people, you'd think that this red line would be at the 0 thousands of acre foot demarcation line. Actually, the way the compact's written, above the negative 200,000 acre foot line, where New Mexico is in compliance with the compact. So you can see here in 2020, and I talked about a almost 39,000 acre foot debit status. That's this point here. And we're projected from somewhere between 80 and 100,000 acre feet to be in a debit status coming up this year, and that's this point right here. We had the Conservancy District requested through me as the compact commissioner an emergency release of debit water that's retained in Novato due to extreme drought conditions. Again, I mentioned that, well, we needed commissioners from Colorado and Texas to agree unanimously to that release. And again, the idea was to prevent significant economic harm to farmers that were in the middle of their irrigation season and to sustain habitat for endangered species. I wound up issuing an order. And the biggest thing is that second bullet. I was really surprised that we were able, in the state of litigation that we're in, and the Texas v. New Mexico litigation, that the Texas commissioner was willing to allow us to go ahead and release that debit water as soon as we had that agreement. And we made that agreement within a day and a half of the river going dry in mid-July. I issued an order, a state engineer order directing how the debit water would be used. Again, this is the first and last page of the order that I signed, but it was for 38,000 acre feet on the 17th of July. And so water was released to try to get us through Labor Day. Again, that would give the farmers in the Middle Rio Grande and the endangered species another 60 days. Again, to reduce economic harm to those farmers and to sustain the habitat for the endangered silvery minnow. The debit operations also preserved recreational and aesthetic benefits for the Rio Grande for those citizens, and also to assist water users upstream of the Middle Valley on the Rio Chama and the Rio Grande downstream of Bouquet, Wingate. The emergency debit release, the 38,000 acre feet, we had to put conditions on it. The average of 300 CFS release per day would get us through Labor Day. We would allow for a maximum release under certain circumstances. Conservancy District did really well the first couple of weeks. It didn't rain. They asked for a variance to get them up to that 400,000 acre feet. And what it did, it reduces the water that would reach Elephant Butte in 2020, and it would reduce the Rio Grande project supply for 2021, put us into a further accrued debit status. And so the Rio Grande compact debit operation, we're anticipating a very tough water year in 2021, the likelihood of a very minimal runoff that could potentially end in 2021. Again, I talked about the projected compact debit where we're going to be. And currently, there's going to be storage restrictions in Novato because of the structural issues there. About 120,000 acre feet is all that can be stored. If we get a better than anticipated runoff, we're still going to have to require most of the stored water to be tied up under Article 6, which means it's got to go down to Texas, and the prior and paramount reserve, which is necessary every year. We're going to be working closely with the Conservancy District on options evaluated based on hydrologic conditions and compact considerations. I'm going to have to stop there, and there's so much more to talk about. But just to respect the time and not to get everybody behind on time, I'm going to stop there. Sam, I don't know if you wanted to ask any questions or not, if we have time for any questions, but we've got challenges, again, all over the state of New Mexico. Just wanted to show you just the issues that we have on the Middle Rio Grande. We've got them everywhere. So I'll stop there and stand for any questions that we might have.
So John, to get on with the program, I really appreciate your willingness to take questions, but we might want to kind of put a list in the Q&A and keep going with our program.
Okay.
Julie Valdez is going to be up next, but thank you ever so much for your comments today. Really great.